Happiness with Jocelyn. I'm Jocelyn, and this channel is a place to find fun, creative, and intentional ways to experience more joy and happiness in our lives. One of the best ways to do this is to invite the people you love to come over, host them, have a meal with them. And so today's video is hopefully some inspiration for you to do just that. Normally, when I plan an event, I like to start with a vision board. Now, vision boards help me to figure out what I want the end goal to look like, to feel like. And so usually I start with a photo. It could be an AI photo, it could be from a magazine. This time I had kind of a different inspiration, and it was actually the clearance section of a store. So I'll show you what the inspo photo is here. And it's not a photo. They're 3D real life things. So there's this green vase that's shaped like a leaf, and then have these two fuchsia pink vases. Now I love these, and immediately I knew two things. One of them is they could easily fit into my home decor, and it's one of the tips I actually have for hosting and entertaining, and that's when you're purchasing things, you want to purchase things that make you happy, bring you joy, but also things that have longevity and that you can get good use out of them. I also think you should shop from your home first before you start going out to shop for an event or seasonal decor or hosting your friends over. The other thing I knew when I saw these was I had an idea for a dinner party, and that was something called Pink Tropic. So I had this idea of doing a really fun, dramatic, jungle, tropical themed dinner. So I'll show you my vision board here. So the actual, I guess, picture here are the vases themselves. But in terms of a color palette, I was looking at this fuchsia, the green, and then some gold accents. In terms of the color, I definitely wanted to use a little bit of colored light. Now, typically you would use like a light itself that's colored, but this time I'm actually using the glass of the vase to do that. So I'm just gonna put a flameless candle in these vases, and that should glow a really nice pink color. The other thing I'm gonna be using is definitely candlelight. I wanna have a more intimate feeling, a little bit more dramatic. And then I'm also gonna use some touch lamps that you may have seen in restaurants to provide a little bit more lighting. I definitely want it to be dramatic. I want this idea of like you walked into like a tropical restaurant somewhere in the Caribbean. So that was the vibe for the lighting, and I think lighting is really important for giving that more dramatic feel to your event. The other thing I was thinking through is sort of what's the vibe, what's the feeling, how do I want my guests to feel? And I definitely want it to be intimate and dramatic. I want it to be fun. So I'm going to incorporate a lot of different visual things and maybe a few surprises. I have one in particular I think you might really like. So if you want to see that, keep watching, and I'll meet you in my dining room. Okay, we're here in our dining room and we're ready to get decorating. I'm really excited for this particular evening because I think this pink tropic theme is going to be lots of fun. Before we get started, I did want to give you a little bit of a tip. So my regular dining table is smaller and it's round. That's really useful for me for most of my entertaining. It's also really useful for my everyday life. But I noticed as I got into entertaining a little bit bigger, and especially around the holidays, that small table just wasn't cutting it. So I opted to purchase this larger rectangular tabletop. Now this is a good option because it gives you flexibility. So I interchange the round one and this rectangle one quite often. If that's not something you can invest in, think about getting a dining room table that has that removable leaf that lets you kind of extend and contract your table, and that's also going to give you lots of flexibility. In the intro, I shared with you the inspiration for this particular night, and it happened to be a couple of vases that I bought. So those pink and green ones are definitely going to be the anchor for today's inspiration. Now, when you're doing centerpieces, you don't want things like vases or candlesticks to just sort of be floating amongst your table. You want to give them somewhere to live. Now, you can do that pretty easily by doing a table runner. But this pink tropic theme is supposed to be fun, so a table runner might just be a little bit too traditional for tonight. So I'm actually opting for a garland. So this is another great way for you to anchor your centerpieces. So I found this one and it's very on theme. Not just because it's got these tropical leaves, but also because it's got a lot of that pink and green in it. So picking up that color palette that we have from our vision board. When you're using things like garlands, we underestimate the power of actually opening them up. So the way they come to you and the way you buy them aren't necessarily the way you want to display them. So I'm going to put this down. I'm going to want it pretty centered here, but I do want to open up these leaves a bit. Now, I thought that it looked a little anemic all on its own, so I got two. If there's one thing you should know about me is I'll go extra because I'd rather have to cut something than have to go get it after. All right, so I'm just gonna lay this one here. And so I feel like adding two gives it a little bit more body, it makes it a bit thicker, and it balances both ends. I usually find with garlands, one end is a little fuller than the other end. And by doing two in opposite directions, it really gives equal thickness across the whole thing. So I'm pretty happy with how that looks. So now I need to go ahead and add those vases that I showed you at the beginning of the video. All right, so I've got my vases nicely in their little bed here, and I think they're looking really good with these palm garlands. So the next thing I have to think about is what's going in these vases. So I knew pretty quickly that I was gonna put some type of floral in these three center ones. I'm a big fan of silk flowers. Please don't judge me. The reason I like them is you can have a lot of flexibility, especially for a theme like a pink tropic like we're doing now. With silk flowers, whereas like if you were gonna go to a florist, potentially you couldn't exactly get what you'd want depending on what time of year it is, but also could be pretty expensive, especially for something so specific as this. When I do fresh florals, I usually give them as gifts to my guests, and so in this occasion I'm not doing that, so I don't feel bad about using silk flowers here. The other thing I like about silk flowers is they last forever and you can reuse them. So yeah, I encourage you, buy some silk flowers in your life. So for tonight, I definitely wanted to pull on the pinks because the center vase is green. I wanted to incorporate a little bit of that. So I opted for some tropical ones. It's gonna be pretty sparse, so I'm not making a very large arrangement here. So I'm gonna place this one here. Okay. And then I'm just adding this palm leaf just to fill it a little bit in the back here. So I'm pretty happy with that. I think it looks pretty sweet. And then just to pull in, but keep it simple. Like I think one of the things when you're using artificial flowers is you want to be thoughtful and not go too crazy with them. All right, perfect. So I definitely think my center florals here look really cohesive and they kind of look like one arrangement. It's not too high, so my guests are definitely going to be able to speak to each other across it, which I think is really important to consider when you're doing your centerpieces. Now, my two end vases here, I knew right away that I was going to want to make them into lanterns, so I'm just going to add some pillar candles to them. I really like flameless candles just generally. You don't have to worry about them throughout the night. You don't have the mess of having to clean up wax after. And if people get a little too excited at your party, you don't have to worry about anything catching on fire. All right. So when I think about candlelight, it definitely gives you more of an intimate feeling. It also makes things a little more dramatic. The thing though is, depending on how much candles you have, it's not necessarily enough light for people to enjoy their meal and see what they're eating. So I definitely love the candles, but I'm gonna add one of my favorite things, which are these touch lamps. You've likely seen them in restaurants. It's nice because when you decide not to have overhead lighting to make your event a little more intimate, more dramatic, more romantic, these will give you enough light on the actual place setting so that people can see what they're doing when they're eating. So I'm just gonna snuggle these in here. All right. I don't know what you think, but I think this is looking really good and I'm getting even more excited now. So I wanted to talk to you about one more centerpiece slash floral that I'm going to incorporate, and that's actually above the table. So I'm really lucky because I have this chandelier. I think it's beautiful on its own, but I also can hang a lot of things from it, and I often do that because I think it's an unusual thing to do when you're decorating a table for a dinner party or just a regular party. So I have these long flowers. I actually have them, I bought them for a friend's birthday, and I made a really beautiful wall out of them. What I'm going to do today though is I'm actually going to turn them into like a floral canopy or chandelier, and it's going to hang above my table here. So let me go do that and then I'll show you what it looks like. Let me know if you think it's good or not. All right, chandelier's done and I'm absolutely in love with it. I think it turned out really great. Let me know what you think, and if you like it, I hope you try to do something like this in your space. I think my friends are gonna have a really big impression when they see this. Yeah, it's dramatic. But now that I've got my tablescape all done, I've got my floral chandelier going, it's time to think about our place settings. So when you think about your place settings, you want to first think about whether you're going to use a tablecloth or a placemat. In this particular occasion, I'm going to be using a placemat. I really like using unusual placemats. It lets me add a little bit more of my theme to my tablescape. It lets me have a little bit more fun. And so for today's pink tropic theme, I'm going to use a palm leaf. Now it's not real, but for today's purposes, it definitely will work. So I'm going to put that down first. And before I get into the details of the place settings for today, I did want to give you a couple of tips. So for today, I'm actually using a mix match set of dishes. Now, you could totally use a complete set of dishes and it'll look amazing, but I wanted to do something a little bit more fun, a little bit different. And it's also a really good tip for people who don't have full sets of dishes. So if you kind of have only enough for 2 people, because that's how many people live in your home, but you have a couple of versions of those plates, you can definitely mix and match them and create a really lovely place setting for some guests that come over. So I'm going to show you just one example, and then later on in the video, I'll show you the full place settings and you can get the full vibe of what I'm going for. So I'll show you just the chargers as an example. So this is the first charger. It's glass and it definitely has like a sun feel, and I definitely felt it fit really nicely into the tablescape here and definitely meets the brief of our vision. The second charger that I have here is this plain gold foil charger. Again, it's pulling in the gold, so same family, and that's why it works. So when you're mixing and matching, you definitely want to think about the palette. So whether you're using the same color, same texture, same shapes, that's what's going to make it all cohesive, but you can still put different things together. All right, one last tip on dishware. Now, this might be a little controversial. When I want to add something that's really theme specific or something that I can't necessarily integrate into my regular usage or my regular entertaining, I don't necessarily want to spend a whole lot of money investing on porcelain or glass versions of plates. So I wanted something fun. I definitely wanted something that was like fuchsia pink and I didn't already have it. And so for my budget for this event, I actually decided to go for disposable plates. Now, I think these look really great. They're definitely very vibrant and they have a gold rim on them, which I think once they're down and mixed in with all my other dishes, I don't think anyone's gonna tell that they're plastic until they start using them. So let me go ahead and get all my place settings down. I'll show you step by step what they look like, and then I'll meet you at the end for the full complete look. So my table is fully set up. I did show you and walk you through each step of the 2 different place settings that I put together. The one thing I did want to call out was I also mixed and matched the cups as well. Both sets of the cups. So I did like a green and a pink, and then on this side I did a yellow and a green. Really pull in the color palette and continue to make it really cohesive, even though it is a bit of a mix and a match. So don't be afraid, experiment, do something different. I think my tablescape turned out really good with all the mixing and matching I did. Let me just get my chandelier on here. I'm really excited for my guests to actually see how this all turned out. Now, there's just one more thing I want to do because I like extra. I feel like the back there is just a little bit plain. And so I think when my guests are sitting down at the table and looking through and past, I just want to have a little bit of something back there just to add a bit more interest and, you know, make sure I keep the entertainment and the theme going here. So let me do that. I'll put it all together and then we'll meet back here in just a sec. All right, I am really ecstatic about how everything turned out. When I think about my original vision, and it all started with these like basic vases, and now I really do have a pink tropical party going on here. Yeah, so I like to always do one thing that's handmade, and so I was really into those viral watermelon cakes that were like desserts but made with fruit. Um, but I wanted to make an appetizer version of that. So if you're interested to see how I made that for this party, I made a watermelon feta mint salad in the shape of a cake. You can find that link in my YouTube shorts. Other than that, I think I'm ready to have my guests join me here. Thank you so very much for spending your time with me. I hope you learned a couple of tips and tricks. And more importantly, I hope it inspired you to add a little bit of fun to your home and to your next event. So yeah, invite some people over. Make a reason to spend some time with people you like and people you love. Other than that, have an amazing week, and I hope to see you all soon.